So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the JKMRC Friday morning seminar series. On behalf of the University of Queensland and the Sustainable Minerals Institute, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which we meet today. We pay our respect to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections with country, and we recognize their valuable contribution to Australian and global society. So for this seminar, it is my pleasure to welcome Andres Recalde. Andres specializes in the management processes to deliver solid and sound strategies to gain and maintain social acceptability in mining and exploration projects. He started his professional career with PwC as management consultant. In Canada, he worked for World Vision Canada as regional manager for Latin America. He participated in a resettlement project for Barrick Gold's Pueblo Viejo mine project in the Dominican Republic. In 2010, he started working with Torex Gold in Mexico. In this project, he managed to revert the status of socially distressed asset. Andres has established as reputable consultants practice based in Toronto, serving different companies and organizations related to the mining sector operating in Latin America. He has also very active participation in professional networks in universities as visiting speakers and panelists. So today, Andres, he'll be presenting a seminar titled Social License to Operate, Myth or Reality. So let's give a warm welcome to Andres. Thanks, Andres.
Thank you.
So yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Good evening from outside Toronto. Daniel was asking me, he was guessing perhaps I was Mexican. No, I am Peruvian. I was born and raised in Peru, Lima. I came to Canada 25 years ago. Different things, but thank you for attending this. Social license to operate is still a relevant topic, I would say, perhaps under different names, different denominations, but the essence is the same. So let me explain to you what is my take on this aspect based on not too much into research, not too much into what I read from others, but mostly maybe I am too proud into what I have seen in the last 22 years of doing this for the mining sector in Latin America. Let's start. So I have 4 parts here. This is an overview. First, I will describe what is the beginning of this? What is the business case? Is this make sense for a project or to talk about social license? Then I will mention the legal and social aspects, social process, sorry. There are legal aspects because this concept has a very strong niche in some legal and social. So there are processes I will describe. Then I will jump into prepare to manage. And what I put in brackets manage is because there is not a person in the whole structure of a mining company or exploration company, exploration project with a title in charge of socializing. So I will describe what I mean by to manage. And then social license to operate as a market value contributor is a reality. So I will describe with examples why the market value, the stock value fluctuates if your interaction with local stakeholders or with the local government is not good, so you don't have too much chances to add more value. Well, let's start. The business case and the beginning of this, okay? Early management theory described the concept of business legitimacy. It is long time, no, from the early 19th century, no? So some altruistic entrepreneurs in the US, Europe, they describe it that the business have to make contributions to the society, okay? That's perhaps a philosophical aspect, but the concept has been there for a long time. Corporations' model cannot be determined by economic and technical factors alone, but also by political and social factors. This is more relevant every time. It's just not my economic capacity, my knowledge of the skills or the market or my niche in natural resources or technological aspect that determine how I am perceived by society. There are political and social factors as well. Political and social factors can become more deterministic in some cases. In the extractive sector, oil and gas mining is really deterministic. In extreme cases, I have some examples later on. Legitimacy is called into question. Why this company, why this project is allowed to do the things they are doing. So that's when the people don't understand exactly why the government, the central government allows them to do things in the land. Then you jump into social political risk management. That's a consequence. If your legitimacy is challenged, then you need to enter into risk management. Well, let's explain each one of these. The concept took shape in the late 80s by a person, a gentleman, Jim Cooney. Jim Cooney, working in Papua New Guinea for Placer Dome, he was invited to a conference by the World Bank. They invited Jim to describe his experience in Papua New Guinea, and Jim presented in Washington, D.C. the concept. He introduced the concept late 80s or early 90s, socialize. So everyone was puzzled, socializing. Jim, what do you mean? But here is, I taken from him, this is a quote from him directly. Socializing was not introduced as an ethical concept, but as a term in pragmatical political risk management. I totally agree with this. Refers to the power imbalances in many developing countries between the central government and remote communities around mine sites, and the growing power of communities as augmented by their global allies to affect the cost of mining operations. This statement has a profound meaning. I have seen time after time. Before, mining companies found their assets in remote areas, very remote, so they don't disturb anybody. But that has changed. Perhaps the people in business development in mining companies, the resources are not longer in remote areas. Even as remote, you can see the lithium salars in Chile, Argentina. You see the desert or the altiplano. Nobody, no even animal, but there's an ecosystem that is being used by someone, groups, communities, or they have stakeholders all around. So the central governments are by constitutional law, the owners of the underground resource that includes oil and gas and mineral. So they are granted by the constitutions in the countries to grant concession. But then the central government issued a license to explore or to develop the resources, but the local people, they don't necessarily see that as a benefit. So that's the imbalance that Jim Cooney was referring in developing countries. I don't know the case of Australia, but in Canada, the imbalance is still there with indigenous groups, First Nations we call, but the imbalance is not as sharp pronounced as in developing countries per se. I am talking about Latin America. Remote communities around mine site. And the growing power of communities is a reality no, I haven't seen since I visited Latin America, and I am from Peru. Communities that have not access to information. Every time they made a jump from telephone landline to the they jump at that. They don't wait for the telephone company to counter communities, so they jump to satellite communications and to cell phones. So the access to information is available. Then I want to quote the relevance of this to major companies. No, this is a quote from Mr. Mark Bristow, Barrick CEO, from 2020. And he was interviewed and in different aspects. No, he was, I think, taking the reins of Barrick at that time. But he's relevant, I think, in saying for many years he's been like a feel-good index, the social license to operate. But I can tell you whether you're in Nevada or Congo, DRC, you need a license to operate today. That's his words. I used to work for Barrick in Latin America, and I know what they mean because it's the second now gold producer in the world. Mining companies are stewards of national assets. It's a very interesting assertion. Whether they be the state or national assets, or given that political leader change, I will emphasize that change all the time. Companies need to build a social license to operate that is not just about being compliant, but means being a good corporate citizen. I would challenge this last part, a good corporate citizen. My take, and this is Andres Recalde take, is you need to insert your activity, extracting natural resources, as an actor that the same other companies extract timber, extract water, extract whatever. They need, the stakeholders need to see that your operation is beneficial to everybody, not only to you. So even the government gives you a license, and I explain with the example later, is not just enough. No, something from the beginning of this statement, stewards of national assets, is true. The government, they don't have the knowledge of the resources to develop the resource, and the resource underground, or mineral ore, or oil and gas has zero value if it's still under the ground. So the governments, they have to put those areas into concession and waiting for companies, national or international companies, corporations to come and develop the resource. So, but these stewards, they are granted for a time, limited time to do that. With a risk, they take the full risk to do the exploration, the tests and everything is a high risk. You know better than me how much money needs to be raised in order to develop this. So then we go to, based on those definitions, Jim Cooney and Mr. Bristow, what is the most common accepted definition? Social license to operate refers to the level of acceptance or approval of the activities of an organization by his stakeholders, especially local impact committees. I have been many times, many years attending the PDOC, the convention here in Toronto. I started this in, well, early 2000s. So, but time after time, I started listening to conference, the little speeches during the conference, and I always hear that the law firms saying, we don't need anybody else to tell us how to operate because we have the government approval to do this. So sometimes the law firms with the mining companies refer in the beginning of this conference 2000, saying we don't need anything else. We don't need local stakeholders to say anything because the government granted. If the government betray the license they give to us, or they don't honor that, well, we need to take them to international arbitration. Wow, that sounds me too. So what do you mean? If the local stakeholders are not convinced that you are doing something the benefit of them or sharing the benefits, so you would take the country to court? Yes, we take the, oh, well, okay. That's very, very bold statement. Some companies still, they need to do that for the sake of the corporate mandate, but it's not the best way to do it. So describing the context for instructive projects, social license to operate suggests the idea of committee acceptance to a proposed project. Of course, social license, no? Committee must accept something. It tends to relate in doing what is necessary to avoid public opposition. Perhaps the best definition is if they are not opposed, they are accepting. That's a practical definition. Instead of a positive effort for higher standard of social and environmental performance. So International Financial Corporation, the World Bank, and many others have set the standards, no? In the late 90s, no? The social safeguards from IPCs. Where if you want the Bible. So you follow those 12 standards, and you are supposed to be good, but that's still not enough. That's still not. I will explain a moment. So here is another take from social license to operate, and this is from our friend Robert Boutelier and Ian Thompson, two Canadians, doing research and practice this for many more years than me. But they define this as gradual achievement. They define stages, and they prove that in research, field research. The first is you need to gain legitimacy from the local stakeholder. Then you pass some time of interaction, different levels of interaction and engagement, and then you reach the level of approval with some credibility. Not complete credibility, you might make mistakes and you correct those mistakes, or you make huge mistakes and then you need to recover from that. When you reach the third level, you are in the most perfect level of trust. There are many companies that achieve this, but it takes time, the resources, they create creativity, they take the right people, the right methodologies, and the right level of budget to reach that level of trust. That's green is where you mining companies the best possible scenario, no? The level of trust. And even the level of trust, you can go all the way to the bottom if you make a huge mistake. No? But in the level of trust, you are controlling the whole thing. And if you keep good quality in controlling that, you remain there. It's a very, very interesting approach. I would recommend, if you have the time, to reach about Robert Boutelier and Ian Thompson. There is another tape from Zero, from close to you. Kevin Monfat, a colleague, and I took from him. He developed this in not too many years ago. He created a statistics model where you can see the government's, he assigned values to three different levels of interaction: governance capacity of the company, distributional fairness from the resources, and procedural fairness. This is a very sophisticated and very useful way to see what Robert Boutelier and Ian Thompson were describing before. And then you have a balance of benefits over impacts. This is very important balance, and you need to keep doing very often in your project. He tried this in Australia, he tried in Chile. And interesting, in Chile, the evidence said that Chile, the people from the cities trust mining companies, but the people in the countryside where the companies operate the project, they are not too sure, no? That the benefits are balanced over impacts. So he assigned values in the case of Australia, trusting in the mining industry and acceptance of mining. You see the same color green that Boutelier and Thompson assigned to trust. Maybe semantic, but the same level, acceptance. Okay, you are doing your mining project not too far from here, my house, my committee. You have you are legitimately, you are behaving well, you are amending things, you have a grievance mechanism in place, you interact with us, you talk to us, you describe what you're doing, what is, we have so much noise, dust, or strange people around, and you're responsive, then you get accepted. That's another way to say it. But then when you lose that legitimacy, you have situations like this. Local stakeholders and the government, because they granted the license, they cannot dishonor the license. The concession is a law. So they need to take sides, and they take sides for the project. But that's not the ideal situation. I would not recommend companies to reach this level. No, they need to avoid that as much as possible. When your legitimacy is neglected, rejection comes quickly. So this is the other way around. This is a case in Guatemala or Colombia, I think. This community, they accept. The company did the right things. Yes to mining, not to minority interests with illegitimate interests that oppose that. And this is happening very often in Andean countries where communities where they have in their lands formal mining projects that comply with license, impact assessment, environmental permits, and everything is correct. But there is a small group of sometimes artisanal miners that they see their activity challenged with the presence of the large mining companies. So the local people, they size with a company. Yes, we want mining. We want responsible mining. And we don't want to be under the pressure of a small group with a particular interest, but the company have our trust. So this is the evidence that local people, when they are informed properly, they take sides for the right thing. So raising the importance of social license to operate, again quoting from Robert, the changing balance between social and legal assistance by stakeholders versus government. I mentioned at the beginning, Jim Cooney is a reality. So government is far away from the community affected by the mining operation. So the balance must bring the balance from just the central government telling you you are good to go. You have the good to go from the local people, local stakeholders as well. And that happens very often with decline of institutional legitimacy. The government is too far. In Peru, where I am from, there is a phrase, no? The Peruvian state is too far. We are here, our community is here. The Peruvian government, the state of Peru is too far. You need to talk to us. You don't need necessarily talk only to the central government. So that's a decline when the institutional legitimacy is declining. So you need to enter into balance. That's not as, and that's a tricky situation. So retreat to smaller political identities. You need to deal with the mayor. You need to deal with the local groups. You need to identify their political identities and deal with them. A smaller radius of trust. So you need to develop that trust in a smaller groups. A mistrust of elite definition of national interest. I have seen that many times in countries like Peru, when they granted large projects on behalf of the national interest, but the national interest is not necessarily viewed that way by the local group. And most of the time, they challenge the national government with conflict and opposition. So the limitation and challenge of social license to operate is intangible and abstract in nature. So social license, it's not a paper. But the main challenge I see time after time for mining companies, oil and gas, is how to translate dealing to get social license into a management program. So that's the moment when our good friend Bruce Harvey comes into effect. Bruce Harvey is a geologist used to be former Rio Tinto. He's from Australia, member of the Australian Institute of Mining and Metal. But he described his transition from be part of the technical team to be part of the social team in the same company, Rio Tinto. So he was able, he was one of the first practitioners I have seen internationally to incorporate a social performance as a management program. That's how to get social license to operate. Without some effective means to measure social acceptance, it's easy to understand when social license is lost or when it's challenged than when it is achieved. So it's not a concept that is a hard concept. It's not a hard law. It's a soft law. That's the lawyers explained to me, Andres. We have two ways to see the law here. Hard law is a written law, but the soft law is the customary law. So social license deals with the customary aspect, the soft law. Then is a moment to jump into the legal and social process. Here is an example of the way national government, in the case of Peru, granted a concession. So to the left is the location of the concession the government is willing to give in concession. So it's a title given to this company, Buenaventura, is a Peruvian company. The coordinates of the location is usually squares in middle in coordinates, and level the amount of hectares for each one of the boundaries. So this is your title. You're entitled. You pay the fee and you're entitled to make mine. And this is a location to the right, the specific coordinates, usually rectangles of 1,000 hectares each one, or a mix. So with those two aspects, the map and the concession title, you are good to go. But that's the legality of the exploration. Just the beginning, the legality. That's what I refer in the PIDA conventions, and lawyers say, with these two things, we are good. uh, Reality proves that is not enough. So when stakeholders participation in exploration, for example, you need to have several of the meetings like the one I described in the picture to the left. You need to find what is customary for these local stakeholders to have a meeting. This you see is a high in the mountains. It's maybe spring or summer. But nevertheless, you don't expect them to be coming. Usually this is a Sunday afternoon. That's the only moment they have to listen to who is bringing something new, an announcement. So you need to go where they are. You need to set the time and the place where they usually have their meetings, and describe to them what are you what do you mean by coming here to do exploration. So you describe to them that they maybe 1 or 2 in 2 months, 3 weeks, you are bringing this kind of equipment to the right. And you need to be very, very illustrative. What this being equipment means, what is going to do, what is going to represent. And the first question I hear all the time when the explorer brings this equipment is, oh, okay, what is going to happen to the water source? If this machine is going to contaminate water source, are you going to take water from there? That's the first question. And the second question, oh, you're taking cores, you're taking rocks from the bottom. Yes, we're taking rocks. Okay, so that means that you are taking the mineral away right now. At the moment, no, this is exploration. We are taking cores to do analysis. So you need to go over and over with a different group. So you explain to them what is a drilling machine, why do you need water in this quantity, where you dispose your garbage. Even if it's small, even if perhaps 1 or 2 months of doing this, but you need to describe. This you better bring samples, what is a core, what is in. And then you go to consultation. The consultation process is now part of the permitting process in different countries, Peru included. But the terms is a little tricky when you translate that into Spanish, because these committees are not supposed to be consulted, they are supposed to be ordered. But when the government, central government say, okay, you will be consulted about this process, then for some reason, they go in their mindset to say, oh, if you want to ask me about this, I have the right to say yes or no. They don't understand the concept of consultation to build, to improve a decision of the government. No, they go to approve or disapprove the government decision. So I hope you're following the difference. Consultation in the English language in the democratic or governance of the Anglo-Saxon tradition is to enhance a decision, not to oppose the decision, not to neglect the decision. So in Latin America, unfortunately, the consultation takes the shape of a veto if they can. And that's the difference when you enter into consultation process. No? If you haven't engaged in the right process, most of the time, the consultation meeting results in a no, because they don't understand or they feel afraid, they feel fearful that you're going to do something bad for them. So consultation in the American context reflects the weak governance. You do consultation in weak governance locally. In a political power struggle, because sometimes the political leaders, the small political leaders in the area, they take that as a way to, oh, I will, on your behalf, I will discuss with the company, is this good for you or not? That they want to hijack the process of consultation. Sometimes companies' behaviors, biases, or misinformation results in a veto. In the case of Colombia, this happens because of the governance of the different departments they have. In Argentina, the same with the different provinces in Argentina, Peru the same. So, but this is a quote, the last quote. Every time we got an agreement with local stakeholders, they turn the table the next day because there is a new, more proactive, more audacious, more courageous, or opportunistic leader say, no, the agreement yesterday is not good because I can see that you're trying to trick my community. So turn that table. And that's something not good for the project. This is a real case in Mexico. I took part in this, these people in the left, they are being informed. This is an assembly. The gentleman in the table, the red table, is the representative of the government of Mexico. So he has a record of who is ejidatario. Ejidatario is the owner of the land. So we call the meeting a Sunday. These people, they are registered as ejidatarios, as the owners. They are the owners of the land that we want to do this mining project. So the representatives of government, they come, they call the assembly to order, and they ask, well, we have this company coming to your land to do a mining project. They have been 2 years informing you what is going to happen. Now is the time for you to formally make the decision. So we spent several hours describing again the process, the land, the roads, what is happening with the water, job opportunities. But then finally, in the mid-afternoon, this started in the morning, in the mid-afternoon, well, you're ready, you're informed, now please vote. Because of the quality of my team, this is my project, used to be my project, they voted in favor. No? You can see the evidence we put on the walls, again, illustrating the decision. This is the lawyer in charge of acting as a notary, counting the voting people. And then the government representative issued a minutes, everybody signs, and the agreement is formalized. That means disclosure and consent, or what is in other terms, the free prior informed consent. So we achieved that. But this is not just one morning. It takes 2 years to reach this morning. That's what I am trying to tell you. No? It takes time. It takes time, patience, and the right people in the right moment to present to them, clarify fears, gaining trust. So this is another example after the assembly approved. And this is very symbolic in the Andean countries. Mexico is different. Andean countries is this way. They are here at 4,488 meters over the sea level. And the mining company represented and the local leaders, they must go to that place. If you are not, your heart or your health is not good for altitude, so sorry, but you need to be there. Someone from the company must be there. That's very symbolic for them because that's the moment they see, oh, these local people are serious. They will walk with us and they stand where they want to do this project, Kayankan. So I finished that with that illustration. How to prepare. Now I am talking about how the corporation, the company, the project people have to manage this. There are some aspects that the management plan must comply. They need to have a consistent message, clarity, simple and clear. The constant engagement means more trust. I have seen companies that really are very, very thrifty in the moment to engage. When they ask the local community relations team, ask for budget to go to the place and have another moment to talk to them, the answer is, well, you have been there too many times this month. We need to save money in gas or in renting the car, the truck. That's really not a moment to be thrifty because it means more trust. The opportune change in information. When you change your drilling plan or your location of your drilling paths, you need to inform quickly, and that means less fear. Be very open, very open. If you keep something for that's not significant for them, it's significant. Because if they hear through the grapevine is called or as a gossip, that's the moment you're losing trust. No? And disclose the project scope. and be realistic in your expectation. If you are realistic in your expectation, they tell you right away, oh, your expectations are correct or too high, or we don't understand your expectation, and these are the identification of fears and expectations, yours and them, theirs. So taking again from Robert Boutelier, internally, accounting that includes full cost of a stakeholders conflict. International Finance Corporation some years ago, they developed a tool. It's like the net present value corrected by the cost of a conflict. So your net present value goes down for the number of days, weeks, or months you're stopped by some social unrest. So you need to have the right proper accounting. Then you need to have workshops to pool knowledge of a stakeholder network. So you need to know your stakeholder network. You need to pool that knowledge among your team members in your work team. Dispel myths, low profile, low risk is not recommended. Silence means approval. Divide and conquer. Those are the no no's. It's called in English. No? Philanthropy is the last thing you want to do because it's insurance against opposition. No. Education, fund science, eliminate opposition. Yes, that's internally, no? Some principles. Externally, start building early legitimacy, social capital, and social contract. Work on mutual goals with the stakeholders to transfer relationship from traditional transactional to collaborative. Sometimes I hear some CEOs or field country managers say, well, Andres, how much money do they want? It's hard for me to explain. It's not money. They want to interact with you. They don't want a transaction. They want to collaborate with you, and you collaborate with them in their needs. That takes more time and takes that budget in a different shape. And we know where the peripheral allies of project versus opponents. That's also very important because the stakeholders you need to deal with are not necessarily the ones nearby. Sometimes they are in the capital of the state, the province, or they are in the capital of the country. But they have the means and the communicate through social media opposition. And I have seen many organizations that make a living of this. So knowing your local stakeholders, and I will speed up, social and economic baseline is a must. You must have a social baseline, economic baseline, even if it's a small intervention. Define your direct and indirect area of influence, what area, number of hectares or communities impacted by this. You identify stakeholders inside both areas. I like to call the social X-ray of communities, the level of social capital that you have inside each one of them. You need to know, yes, you cannot ignore what livelihood they have. If they are doing animal husbandry or they're doing fishing, you need to know some aspect of that. How your future activity going to interact with that. Political mapping inside and outside the area is very important because sometimes, as I mentioned before, the opposition groups are social media. We use social media to oppose without knowing. It's funny. They don't know the area, but they oppose. And plan for trust and enhancement and get risk reduction. So this is some example, real example of the way communities map in terms of social group. Community is an abstraction. Inside the community, there are different groups. You have the transportation people, you have the church, you have the government, local government, you have the education sector, you have the health sector. So all these different groups represents interests. They have a position. So the transportation people, for example, they see with open eyes the presence of your project because that means there will be opportunity for them to use the trucks or their buses or their taxis. But not the same way with, for example, the church. The church sometimes they see as they are going to do something back to the environment. And the farmers, they are not necessarily in favor at the beginning. But then you have other groups, the youth group, the mother group, the school, the parents association. Of course, they don't want the children to be exposed to trucks running the very few rows. So they need to be informed what that means. And sometimes you need to agree. Our trucks will operate in the bring material in the early hours of the morning when the children are not in the school. Enough. Okay, that's good. That's good. We agree on that. But the moment a contractor forget and drive the truck in the middle of the day to the town, you have the next hour, you have a stoppage. No, you have a blockade. I have seen that. So stakeholder engagement, I say, never is a waste of time. This is me, Dominican Republic, for the Barrick project, resettlement of people, a small community, but they need to be resettled. They need to be changed the location of their houses. So they need to explain the houses. They need to explain where they're going to be located. It's a common decision. Now I go to the final part, socialize enterprise and market value contributor. And here I have the honor or the privilege to quote Bruce Harvey, I mentioned before. What is required is the ability to work with people and communities proactively and transparently and convince them that the underground underlies in mind, that it is in everybody's best interest for the company to develop the resource. As I said before, the underground resources under the land, under the ground, it has a value zero. So there must be a capital and knowledge and people knowledgeable to bring the resources out. And that they risk, but it's in the best interest of the country, the communities, and the corporation, the government, to develop the resource. So I found very, very encouraging this statement by Bruce Harvey. I said before, ex-Rio Tinto, former Rio Tinto, now he has his own consultancy firm in, I think, in Brisbane, and you can look after him. But this is what happens when a company, this is a company, Tahoe Resources, operating in Guatemala. So they happen to lose the license from the government because they didn't consult properly with the indigenous group. And this indigenous group was very, very aggressive in their way to interact. But then a government, central government decided, no, this company is not doing the right thing with this indigenous group, and we canceled their license, the concession. That's the moment they lost how many points? Wait, for 4 points. Very drastic. And the end of the story of Tahoe was acquired Pan American Silver a few years after, no, because they couldn't operate the asset anymore. So Pan American Silver took very, very rebate, high rebate for the asset of Tahoe in Guatemala. This is when you lose social license. This came from the government. No? In conclusion, does social license operate work? It must work. It should, it must work. My preference is for a more practical, realistic management goal for social acceptance, but never approval. You never get an approval. You need to keep balancing these aspects every week, every month. There is no one formula to manage for social acceptance. No. It's a chemistry, it's social chemistry. Depends on the social, economic, and political landscape of your project area of influence. You small, large, medium. Key components to gain acceptability, right personnel and resources. It's important because if you assign very little or no resources to how to engage with people, you get very bad results. And sustainable development as a contributor, never as a leader. So some companies, they take all the steps further to be, okay, I will make the development of this area. No, that's too much. You need to collaborate with the local sources, the local forces to make development happen. Mining companies are trying to take the full responsibility, ended bad, very bad, because they cannot achieve or the expectations are always short. And good luck. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. And I open now, Daniel, for questions or
All right, thank you very much, Andres. Very interesting talk for us here at least. Here to have some geologists. Super interesting to see the other side and how to better engage with the community, government to have a more sustainable development of the exploration and mining operations. So we have. I'll open first. There is two questions on the chat. The first one is from Ian. So you mentioned gaining social license to operate takes time. Based on your extensive field experience, how do you balance this with the project targets that in most cases require speedy social license, especially during the current rush to extract minerals such as lithium, nickel, cobalt, etc., to meet the demand for energy transition?
So I think perhaps the question is addressing the strategic metals or the energy transition. Several governments, if I hear correctly the question, forgive me if I not, but many governments have started to fast tracking acceptance. But that's a very, very delicate process because it's not doing shortcuts that you can get faster. What is working is that the government simplified the process to get approval of permits. That means if you get the permit faster, you have more time to engage with local stakeholders. So I hope it's clear. Permitting process takes sometimes 2 years in countries like Peru or other countries, no, Latin America, even 3 years. But if the central government shortened that period of permitting to 6 months or even a year, that means that the company has 1 year or more to engage and make the project start into operation quicker. No? I hope I am responding correctly. Daniel, I think you're a little far from your microphone, or I am not here correctly.
Sorry about that. I'll try to talk closer. Is that
okay,
better
that's
now?
better. That's better. That's better.
All right, all right. There is another question from Evan. So, in parts of Queensland, it can be difficult get on the ground for exploration, let alone mining. What are your thoughts on the best way to engage with landholders and traditional groups when seeking to undertake exploration activities?
So you're talking about Queensland?
Especially engaging with the landholders and traditional owners. So what would be the best approach to engage with them to undertake exploration activities?
Yeah, okay. Well, I cannot answer on knowledge of Queensland. I can answer in knowledge of Canada and Latin America. But I can, forgive me if the similarity is there or not. But what I know, what is possible to do is for the mining associations, the Australian Institute of Mining or the Canadian Prospectors and Developers Association, they have programs to start disseminating what is mining, the impacts and the benefit. In Canada and Australia as well, there is this process, no, the methodology called impact benefit agreement. It's a very useful. I haven't mentioned because that's further into the process of beyond exploration. But when you are approved for mining per se, impact benefit agreement have different stages. And one of the stages is to reach memorandum of understanding that start the beginning of the relationship, no, even letter of intents. So the letter of intent evolves to the memorandum of understanding, beneficial agreement, and then when you are in full possession of knowledge and capital and the permits, then you can jump into the full impact benefit agreement that is spelled for the next 5, 7, or the duration of the project. What are the benefits you're bringing to them? What are the mitigation aspects that you're bringing? And that's the balance. That's the balance. The answer is engage as early as possible. No? Don't wait to have the permit. Even if 1 or 2 persons go to visit the project, the indigenous lands or the landowners, traditional landowners, the sooner the better.
Sandra, so do we have a question on the audience here today? Tom?
Thanks, Andres. That was a fascinating exploration of this this complex concept of social license to operate, and it got me thinking that the term social license to operate, it doesn't seem an adequate description to actually capture the complexity of what we're dealing with. Firstly, a license implies that it's a binary condition. You are either licensed or you are not. And there's lots of gray areas. There's lots of diversity of opinion in the community that may sort of partially license a company to operate under certain circumstances. And secondly, it focuses on operate. It doesn't mention anything about post-operation and, you know, the 10 years of mine life followed by an eternity of post-shutdown. So I was wondering first if you think the term, which is widely used and accepted all across the industry, social license to operate, is adequate. Secondly, if you think if it's not, or do you think that term has guided companies and governments' approach to their interactions with local communities, and that terminology has actually impacted the way that people think about how they should interact, and it's not necessarily in the best? And thirdly, is there a better term that you could that you would suggest? Sorry, that was quite long-winded.
No, that's okay. I understand. First answer to your first question is no. The concept is not adequate enough, but it's the best, the second best, if you want. As I mentioned, it's a semantic definition. It's the best way to describe some amorphous condition with the interaction with local stakeholders and the government. But some people like to call social acceptance. But even that social acceptance is intangible. It's not a solid thing. So, and I agree with your second question. Mine closure is not incorporated into this concept, but I have started to see in the last 2 years, in particular in this year, the social license to closure. And that's another aspect, very, very complex closure. We are talking recently about also the aspects of tailings management, how local stakeholders should be informed, how they should be educated about tailings management. That's still virgin, still not explored, but closure. And I am dealing with a case of Barrick in Peru. The project starting in 2003 is closing now. But unfortunately for the local stakeholders, the government of Peru, the regulation for mine closure does not include economic closure. It includes only environmental technical closure. How Barrick is going to put into neutral all the different components of the mine, the open pit, the water balance, and also how they're going to dispose of the hardware, the plant, the processing plant, everything. But in terms of economic livelihood, there is nothing in the regulation, and it's up to, there is only a standard for what is called, it's up to you in terms of closure. No? Please repeat me your third question.
Just whether you thought there was a better term that could be employed than social license to operate.
I think the better term will be acceptance. But again, it's still not a very clear concept, because what do you mean by acceptance? No? Maybe that's the retort. My experience is that if you keep the local stakeholders and the local governments informed, and you engage with them, and when you make mistakes in your project, something happen, you are proactively with the active grievance mechanism in place, the people value that. Just an anecdote, very quickly, in Mexico, we have a family living just in the four of two rows coming from the mine. And this family, with several children, they don't have a washing machine. They wash the clothing by hand. But the customary, they put their laundry in the open air. But because of our trucks coming during the night, they raise dust. The lady of the house very upset with the laundry being dirty. But then we have a grievance mechanism, and the lady trusted the grievance mechanism that we have in place. So he was satisfied with the solution. We will water the road. That will not be possible to be raised when the trucks are coming. But that means that that lady and the family and the network of that lady and the family trusted, and they accepted us. I hope I am giving you some real meaning to the word acceptance. No? That will be equivalent to social license. I agree with you. License is too much, operate worse, but social acceptance maybe is more realistic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andres. There is a last question here online, which you already touched, but if you have any other thoughts, it's do you have any thoughts about social license for mining closure? You touched a little bit, but if you have any other comment.
Yeah. Yes, that's again, I mentioned social mine closure is still a virgin area. A virgin area, I mean, is not deal yet properly. There are standards, ICMM, the International Council of Mining and Metals, they set up a standard, but again, are voluntary. It's still the step connecting the government regulation with the ICMM standard is still very big, the gap. Why? Because governments are, I interview government officials, why you don't update your closure regulation with what the standard ICMM? And the answer is very humble and very realistic. Andres, we cannot incorporate something so subjective. What is economic livelihood improving? For one is this, for one is other. It's very, very untangible. So we cannot jump. For us, environmental is clear. We have the technology, methodologies, hardware, and software to deal with environmental closure. Okay, fine. We do the regulation. We have the regulation for hardware closure, how to disassemble, dispose, and balance, and everything. Okay. But if you are asking us as a government to regulate economic improvement or better improvement of the area that used to be mining operation, it's very hard for us to have a realistic and tangible and meaningful way to say this is a standard. It's up to the parties. But sometimes the companies, they have a specific budgets already assigned years ago, even at the beginning of the project. This is the amount of budget for closure. And local teams, they don't find a way to extend that more. That's the limitation. It's up to the companies perhaps to assign more budget and be more creative. The case in Peru is that it's very interesting because it's just sitting at the bottom of the UNESCO National Park. So, and the local company are asking, well, Barrick, why you don't help us to build a tourist visual point here? It will bring people, they will enjoy the view to the national park, but Barrick is not so willing. I don't say they want to decline that. They really, they don't have the budget to go far. So it's a matter to assign resources to make the mine closure more meaningful for local stakeholders instead of improving the livelihood. They have been doing improving livelihood during the whole life cycle of the mine. But the closure is different because they are not going to do their, they are not going to be there anymore. The population has grown, expectation has changed, people have different expectations. They would like to have, for example, a technological center for education, but that's a huge, huge investment and needs to be shared with the government. And the closure, perhaps, it was not defined at the beginning. It's too late to incorporate when they are starting closure.
Thank you very much, Andres. Yeah, indeed, this topic, there's a lot of complexities involved, and hopefully in the future you start to get better guidelines, and pretty sure you're doing a good job in spreading your experience around. So I think we don't have any more time for questions. If you have any questions, please reach Andres with your
please.
questions afterwards. And I'll ask everyone else to thank Andres for his presentation again.
Absolutely. Thank
Thank you
you,
very
Daniel,
much.
and SMI for the opportunity, and we'll be very glad to interact with anyone who wants to talk more.
Thanks very much, Andres. So next week we have Nicolas Semler from Critical Minerals Group talking about real-world geometallurgy. Hope to see you all there. Thank you.